Hello, I'm Jerry Brown, and I have a new instrument called the Kinderharp, and it plays a 2-octave range for the full scale. And today I'm going to show you how you can use sound effects on this instrument to tell a story. And this is my storyboard here. I'll put it underneath the strings, and then I can read to you while I play the sound effects. So this is the story of Cinderella. Once upon a time, in a kingdom far away, there lived a mother with 2 daughters of her own and 1 stepdaughter named Cinderella. Now, Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters were very mean to her, forever telling her to sweep the floor. It's filthy around here. So Cinderella would always pick up the broom and sweep. Now it happened one day that the doorbell rang. "Who could be calling at our house?" wondered the mother as she opened the creaky door. It was a messenger from the king, inviting everyone to a formal dance at the king's palace to celebrate whose son, the handsome prince, who was now old enough to be married. Well, this was very exciting news for the mother and her 2 older daughters. They immediately began making preparations by selecting gowns and petticoats, shoes and hairpieces, which might attract the attention of the handsome young prince. But they told Cinderella, "No, you can't come, because you have too much cleaning and housework to do." When the stepmother and stepsisters were all dressed up and out the door, Cinderella sat down and cried. "Oh, boo-hoo!" No sooner had the mother and sisters left than there suddenly appeared a dazzling angel. "I am your fairy godmother," the angel declared, "and I will help you go to the king's palace too and dance with the young prince." Well, Cinderella was so confused by this, thinking she was just dreaming. But the angel instructed her to run to the garden and fetch a large pumpkin. So of course she did, because Cinderella always did what she was asked to. She opened the door and ran out to the garden and picked up a pumpkin and ran back and opened the door again. Her godmother cut open the pumpkin and cleaned out the insides and then tapped it with her magic wand. Poof! The pumpkin turned into a beautiful carriage. Then the angel rounded up 6 little mice. And she tapped each one of them with her wand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And they became a team of gray horses. Fine gray horses ready to pull the carriage and Cinderella to the palace. But Cinderella cried, I can't go to the ball dressed in these filthy rags. Boo-hoo-hoo. And with a tap of her wand, the fairy godmother clothed Cinderella in the finest gown she had ever seen, and on her feet were the most beautiful glass slippers. But her fairy godmother warned her that this magic would only last until midnight, so she must return home before the clock strikes 12, because at that exact moment the beautiful carriage would change back into a pumpkin, and all the horses back into mice again. So Cinderella promised to be home before midnight. So off the horses went with Cinderella, galloping at full speed. They came to a bridge, a wooden bridge, where their hoofs were louder, and then they were back on the road again. And then they came to the palace. Whoa! Whoa, boy! When Cinderella arrived at the palace, everyone, including the prince, was dazzled with admiration. But nobody knew who she was. She danced gracefully with the prince. Who gave her all of his attention for the rest of the evening. They bowed and they danced and they smiled and they laughed, and she spun and she twirled. He gazed and he admired, and he fell into love long into the night. Suddenly, Cinderella heard the chiming of the clock. And she started counting the gongs that marked the hour. Oh no, she thought, I must run home at once. So she turned from the prince and ran full speed out of the palace gate, passing an old pumpkin on the way and some mice. She ran all the way home before noticing that she had lost one of her glass slippers along the way. The prince, however, had run after her and had stopped to pick up the lost slipper. His heart had been so completely captivated by the young lady that he determined to find her by testing every woman in the kingdom to see whose foot would fit into the delicate slipper he had found. So he knocked on every door in the town and required every woman to try fitting into the shoe. When he came to the rundown cottage at the edge of town, Cinderella's stepmother and sisters made every effort to squeeze their big feet into the slipper, but to no avail. It won't go. It won't go in. The prince asked if there were any other women in the house, and Cinderella had to come out of the closet in her ragged clothes. The prince did not recognize her at first, but her foot slipped perfectly into the glass shoe. She was the only person in town who fit the slipper. Well, you can imagine the commotion in that little cottage. The surprise, the jealousy, the rage, the anguish of her stepmother and sisters, as well as the sudden realization that the prince had found his true love at last. Well, Cinderella said bye-bye, bye-bye to her family as she and the prince waltzed out of the cottage and lived happily ever after. The end.